My name is Blake Jennings. I'm an IL 504 pursuing a degree, a master's degree in instructional leadership, and this PowerPoint's on project-based learning, learning unit 5. What is project-based learning? The first thing project-based learning is a teacher becoming a facilitator in the classroom and not treating the class as a traditional classroom anymore. A teacher lets the children take control of the classroom as they're in the class and doing what they're supposed to do. Kids are going to be up, kids are going to be walking around. The teacher has to make sure that the students are doing their job and staying on task. The next thing is communication. You have to communicate with administrators, you have to communicate with other teachers and your students as well. Communicating with administrators as to what you're doing in class with other teachers and working across the curriculum and communicating with your students. Ways that can be communicated with students with project-based learning is putting things in the Google Classroom so you can constantly refer back and forth with them even when they're not in the classroom. Collaboration is probably the number one thing for project-based learning, and what we should do with collaboration is teach the kids how they have to work together, because when they get into a real-world situation and they get in a job one day, they're going to have to work with somebody to solve a problem of some kind. And then engagement. Engagement is the biggest thing for project-based learning because it gets kids hooked on what they're trying to learn. It allows the kids to not be just sitting in their desk and taking notes constantly, and they get involved more in the classroom. The next thing, collaboration. Like I said, collaboration is the key. A lot of teachers sometimes with the classroom management part of this part, because there's so many group activities going on, they get scared of it. They get scared of not being able to control that class. So you have to learn, good management techniques to be able to make sure the students are staying on task, that they're working together to solve that driving question. The teachers have to make investigative lessons that allow for the kids to dive into the material. So they're sitting there and they're using that research that they're finding as they're looking through these different lessons and that investigative problem they're trying to solve. And then real-world problem solving. You have to bring in the real world into the classroom as the teacher. You have to make it relevant to what they're doing away from the school. One way to come up with a very good project-based learning lesson is the first thing is engagement. Engaging the children. You have to show them a video. You have to show them something to spark their interest, to hook them into the lesson. Once you've done that, then they begin to explore. Their mind begins to run. They begin to think about other things. They do research. They look at what you've given them, some of the different things, and they kind of take control of the classroom at that point. And then the explaining. They have to then be able to explain, what information did they find? Could they justify their answers? And if they could justify their answers, then you're beginning to understand the material. And then extending it into the real world again. That's the fourth E there. Taking it, like we said, outside of the classroom, making sure they understand how it relates to their real life. And then evaluating. You have to give the kids a rubric. In the rubric, it has to go step by step so they know exactly what they're supposed to do. And then one thing in my classroom, we've used project-based learning in the lab a good bit. The first thing we do is give them an essential question. And throughout the lab, the children have to constantly refer back to that essential question while they're doing their research, while they're identifying what they're supposed to be solving as they're working together in these groups. And then once they've done that, they're learning that info to solve the problem. And solving that problem at the end, they have to use whiteboards to justify their answers to what they were trying to do. They're answering that essential question in the very end. And then here are my references from Learning Unit 3 that was on project-based learning.